CIET NCERT presents AudioBook Exploring Society, India and Beyond, textbook of social science for grade 8.
Page 139, Chapter 6, The Parliamentary System, Legislature and Executive. The Constitution is not a mere lawyer's document. It is a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of the age. This was said by Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer in November 1949, Constituent Assembly debates. The big questions. Question 1. What is India's parliamentary system and how is it structured? Question 2. What are the key functions of the parliament? Question 3. What are the roles of the legislature and the executive in India's parliamentary democracy? Question 4. How are the legislature and the executive organized at the union and state levels? In the left-hand side, next to these questions, some pictures are given. These are labeled as the features of the new Parliament building, and this is figure 6.1. At the bottom of the page, a QR code is given. When you scan it, it will take you to more information on the subject. Page 140. The grade 8 students from Nalanda Vidyalaya were on a school trip to Delhi. Usha, Sukhvinder, Anjali, John and Farida were especially excited to visit the new Parliament building. The rest of the page has a dialogue between the teacher and the students who are visiting the new Parliament building. In the first picture, one student and the teacher are standing in front of the new Parliament building. The student says, "It's not square or round. It's like a soft triangle." And the teacher responds, "The three-sided design reflects balance, inclusivity, and purpose." In the second picture, the teacher is telling the students that the new Parliament building also uses green construction, cutting electricity use by 30%. Inside, the children saw walls decorated with carvings, peacocks, lotuses, tribal art, temple patterns, and freedom fighters. And they observed that it feels like a museum of India. In the fourth picture, the students are standing in front of the Ashokan emblem. In the fifth picture, the students say, "This new building houses so many ancient symbols," and the teacher responds, "Exactly, democracy must look ahead but never forget its roots." Page 141. Introduction. India's independence was achieved through great sacrifices by many people of the country after years of struggle against colonial rule. The citizens of a free country could now make decisions about their own governance. The first important step in this new epoch in the life of our nation was the drafting of the Constitution of Independent India. This comprehensive document laid foundational principles for the nation, including that of universal adult franchise, which guarantees all adult citizens of the country the right to vote irrespective of their social or economic background, gender, race, or religion. At the top of the page, in the right-hand corner, a picture is given. It is figure 6.2 and it is labeled "Our Old Parliament," now called Samvidhan Sadan, building was constructed in the 1920s. The Constituent Assembly met there for its deliberations, and it served as Parliament House for over 7 decades. The people of India directly elect their representatives who become members of the Lok Sabha. A majority group from among these elected representatives forms the government. The Parliament is the supreme legislative body of the government. It makes laws for the country. It comprises all elected representatives of the people and controls and guides the work of the government. The government can therefore be seen as functioning with the people's consent. There have been 17 Lok Sabhas since the first one in 1952. The 18th Lok Sabha was constituted in June 2024. At the bottom of the page, in the right-hand corner, a picture is given. This is figure 6.3 and it is labelled "The Parliament Building, Sansad Bhavan in New Delhi was constructed to accommodate the growing needs including capacity, technology, sustainability and safety." Page 141. Page 142. Composition of the Parliament of India. The Indian Parliament is composed of the President and two houses, the Lok Sabha, which is the House of the People or the lower house, and the Rajya Sabha, Council of States or the upper house. This structure with two houses is called a bicameral system. Bi means two and cameral means chamber or house. In the middle of the page, two pictures are given. The first picture is figure 6.4 and it is labelled Lok Sabha Chambers in the new Parliament building. The second picture is figure 6.5 and it is labelled A View of the Chamber of the Rajya Sabha taken from the press gallery. Let's remember, the people of India choose their representatives for the Lok Sabha through a direct election based on universal adult suffrage. The maximum number of members of this house envisaged by the Constitution is 550. The members of Parliament, MPs in the Rajya Sabha, are elected indirectly by the Electoral College that you read about in the previous chapter. Both the number of the Rajya Sabha seats allocated and the number of MPs represented in the Lok Sabha are based on the population of each state. Page 143. Don't miss out. We are aware that several aspects of the Indian Constitution were drawn from the constitutions of other countries. Britain's system inspired our system of parliamentary democracy. However, there were also experiences that our freedom fighters and constitution makers had. The practical experience gained through participation in British colonial governance structures, even if in a very limited way, that provided familiarity with parliamentary procedures, the memory of ancient republics or the Mahajanapadas, the village panchayats where elders made collective decisions, as we learnt in a previous chapter. At the top of the page in the right-hand corner, a picture is given. This is figure 6.6 and it is labelled Constitution of India. Extensive discussions took place during the making of the Constitution regarding whether India should have a bicameral system. It was felt that a single directly elected house would be inadequate to meet the challenges independent India would face. In the spirit of federalism, it was felt that a council of states, the Rajya Sabha, was needed. The composition and process of election to the Rajya Sabha were also designed to be different. India practices federalism, which is a form of government where power is distributed between the centre, states, as well as local governments. The system helps to keep the balance between national unity and local interests. Function: each House of the Parliament has a presiding officer to ensure that debates and discussions are conducted in an orderly manner. In the Lok Sabha, the members elect a speaker who conducts the session, allows members to speak, maintains discipline, and ensures that rules are followed. The Rajya Sabha is presided over by the Vice President of India, who acts as its chairperson. Page 144. Don't miss out. The Sengal, a gold-plated silver scepter, was symbolically handed over to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru the first Prime Minister of India, on 14 August 1947, on the occasion of Indian independence, as a powerful symbol to mark the transfer of power. It is now placed near the Speaker's chair in the new Lok Sabha and serves as a symbol of righteous and just rule. Dating back to the Chola period, the Sengal was handed to new rulers as a reminder that power must be guided by dharma and righteousness. At its top sits Nandi, symbolizing justice. At the top of the page in the right-hand corner, a picture is given. This is figure 6.7 and it is labeled the Sengal. The word scepter is highlighted here and it means a decorated rod carried by a king or queen at ceremonies as a symbol of their power. To help make parliamentary discussions accessible to all, translation services are provided in multiple Indian languages. Previously, simultaneous interpretation was available in 12 languages, namely Hindi, English, Assamese, Bengali, Gujarati, Kannada, Malayalam, Marathi, Odia, Tamil, Punjabi, and Telugu. Recently, 6 more languages were added: Bodo, Dogri, Maithili, Manipuri, Urdu, and Sanskrit. More languages are expected to be added in the future. The executive responsibility of the Parliament, that is, ensuring that laws are implemented and enforced, is as important as its legislative function, that is, the making of laws. The Union Executive gives life to the legislative functions and power of the Parliament. The Union Executive consists of the following members: the President, the Vice President, and the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. The Council of Ministers is chosen from among the MPs of both houses of Parliament. These ministers are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Page 145. Let us now discuss the legislative and executive functions of the Parliament. Legislative functions of the Parliament. The Constitution lays down the key functions that the Parliament needs to fulfill. They can be broadly classified under the following heads: 1. Constitutional functions. 2. Law-making. 3. Executive accountability. 4. Financial accountability. We explored them briefly in the sections below. 1. Constitutional function. Let's remember, from your previous lessons on the theme of democracy and governance, name a few constitutional functions of the Parliament. Did you list the election of President and Vice President? What about amendments to the Constitution? Indeed, these are vital constitutional functions of the Parliament. There are other important functions that we will explore in higher grades. The Parliament is directly entrusted with upholding the core values of the Indian Constitution, including a. Enabling parliamentary democracy through universal adult suffrage. b. Following the separation of powers between the legislature, executive, and judiciary. c. Ensuring federalism. And d. Upholding fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy by framing laws and policies. Page 146. 2. Law-making. Among the primary responsibilities of the legislature is to make laws. The Constitution has laid out an elaborate and rigorous process for lawmaking. A law is generally brought into force through an instrument called an Act. A bill, which is a draft of a proposed law, is introduced in Parliament and goes through a long and effortful journey before it becomes an act. Given below is the journey of how a bill becomes an act and ultimately a law. In case of the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, which is RTE. The word bill is highlighted here, and it means a draft of a proposed law that needs to be approved by the Parliament before it can be enacted into law. Most people call me RTE. I came into existence in August 2009, though the idea began almost a century before. My roots lie in the directive principles of state policy of the Indian Constitution. Though the Constitution makers wanted me implemented within a decade after independence, this did not happen, leaving countless children without access to education. In the early 1990s, someone argued in court that I was inherently part of the fundamental rights in the Constitution, namely the right to life, as education is important to lead a meaningful life. Parliamentary action began some years later with the introduction of the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002, which mandated, as Article 21A of the Constitution, that the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children between the ages of 6 and 14 years. 6 years later, I was tabled as a bill in the Rajya Sabha. A committee studied me thoroughly and suggested modifications. The major debate concerned funding, new schools, infrastructure, and teachers for millions of children would be costly. By 2008, the MPs determined it was time. After the 2009 elections, the new government pursued the matter, and in August 2009, I was passed in the Lok Sabha and received the President's assent, becoming an act. Today, I have enabled the creation of legal pathways for children to attend school, facilitated new school construction, and ensured free books and uniforms for children. Page 147. From Bill to Act, the process of lawmaking in the Parliament. Under this, a picture is given. This is a flow chart of how a bill becomes an act. So the first box in this flow chart says Introduction in either house of the Parliament, after which the second box says Reading of the bill. The third box says Referred to the Standing Committee. After that, the fourth box says that it is taken up for consideration and passing. The fifth box says clause by clause discussion and amendments voted. The sixth box says vote on the bill. The seventh box says process repeated in the other house. The eighth box says presidential assent, and the final, the ninth box says Gazette notification. Under this diagram, a note is given, and that note says, all bills may not be referred to committees. The words standing committee are highlighted here, and it means a permanent committee consisting of MPs. The MPs may change, but the committee as a structure remains, that scrutinizes government activities, makes recommendations, and asks questions on actions taken by the government. This entire diagram is one picture and it is called Figure 6.8. It is labeled as the process of lawmaking, a simplified diagram to illustrate key steps. Each one of these steps is now explained. Reading. The origins are in the British Parliament. Many MPs were illiterate, so a clerk would read out the contents of the bill for the MPs to discuss. Today, MPs read the bill before the discussions take place. Clause: these are parts of a bill that explain the specific details of the bill. For example, RTE or Right to Education defines the age group to which it applies, that is 6 to 14 years. Gazette: this is an official government publication that announces legal documents and official information. Page 148. Let's explore. Draw a small chart to show the process of how RTE became an act. What do you think the process would be if RTE had been tabled in the Lok Sabha? Don't miss out. Some types of bills have to be tabled only in the Lok Sabha. One example is a money bill that is concerned with financial matters, including taxation, government borrowing, etc. It is essentially a draft law that can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. However, the introduction of the bill requires the prior recommendation of the President. 3. Executive accountability. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are part of the Union Executive. They are 1. Primarily responsible for implementing and enforcing laws and overseeing the effective running of the government. 2. Responsible for taking decisions regarding the day-to-day functioning of the government based on the principles laid out in the Constitution and its laws. 3. Answerable to the Lok Sabha through mechanisms like the question hour, which require ministers to justify their actions and decisions. The question hour in the Lok Sabha is a select period, typically the first hour of a parliamentary session, where MPs can ask the ministers questions about the government policies and activities. It is a process of the Parliament that holds the executive accountable. That is, it must justify all actions and decisions. Special committees also hold meetings where ministries have to explain and answer questions about their policies. These committees may include MPs from different political parties. Page 149. The Parliament isn't always formal and serious. Sometimes the atmosphere is set through poetry and humor. Example 1. Verse in the Parliament. While presenting the Union Budget for the year 2025-26 on the 1st of February 2025, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman recited the following verse from Tirukkural, an ancient Indian treatise in Tamil on ethics and morality. Vanokki Valuma Ulakellama Mannavana Kolanokki Valunga Kudi. It means, just as living beings live expecting rains, citizens live expecting good governance. On hearing this, there was an enthusiastic thumping of desks from the Treasury benches. Example 2. Humor in the Parliament. In 2011, during a spirited debate in the Lok Sabha, parliamentarian Sushma Swaraj quoted a poetic verse to criticize the government. तू इधर उधर की न बात कर, ये बता कि काफिला क्यों लुटा, हमें राहजनों से गिला नहीं, तेरी रहबरी का सवाल है. Which means, don't change the topic, just say why the caravan was looted. We have no complaint with the robbers, but this is a question on your leadership. In response, the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, calmly replied with another poetic line, माना कि तेरी दीद के काबिल नहीं हूँ मैं, तू मेरा शौक देख, मेरा इंतज़ार देख. Which means, I admit that I am not worthy of your sight, you should look at my zeal and my perseverance. Page 150, 1.2. Co-location of Ayush facilities at primary health centers, PHCs, community health centers, CHCs, and district hospitals, DHs. Recommendation 1.2.1. The committee at this juncture notices that in some states and UTs, a separate department of Ayush has not been opened. The committee, to boost the Ayush system and for better coordination in Ayush healthcare, recommends the Ministry of Ayush to impress upon and persuade the states and UTs with no separate department of Ayush to create such a department for speedy development and implementation of Ayush sector and schemes respectively. This is para 2.13 of the report. Action taken 1.2.2. Public health is being a state subject. Creation of separate department of Ayush in the states, UTs, comes under purview of respective state UT governments. However, Ministry of Ayush has requested state UT governments in different meetings to create separate directorates, deployment of manpower in SPMU and DPMU in the states or UTs for speedy development and implementation of NAM scheme. As on date, separate Ayush Directorate is available in 24 states UTs. SPMU stands for State Project Management Unit and DPMU stands for District Project Management Report. This is para 2.23 of the report. On the same page in the left-hand side, a picture is given. This is figure 6.9 and it is labeled as an extract from a report of the Standing Committee on Health and Family Welfare. Let us explore. Given here is an extract from the report of meetings between the Standing Committee on Health and Family Welfare and the officers from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Observe the screenshots above and discuss the following in small groups. Who is reporting to whom? What is the subject that has been reviewed? Identify the committee's recommendation. What is the government's reply? Page 151. 4. Financial accountability. The Parliament approves and monitors government expenditure through the annual budget and examining the distribution of funds to different ministries. Let's explore. Why do you think that Parliament keeps an eye on the government expenditure? Hint: whose money does the government spend? The government is expected to provide the necessary information to Parliament in a timely and accurate manner. Executive functions of Parliament. We have uncovered a few points on the role of the executive in the previous sections. We look at this a little more closely now. Don't miss out. Part 5 of the Indian Constitution begins with Chapter 1, the Executive. It looks at the roles and responsibilities of the President, Vice President, and Council of Ministers, among others. It is in Chapter 2 that the roles and functions of Parliament are listed. Why might this be so? 1. The President. The President is the head of the state and the nominal head of the executive. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are responsible for running the government. The President appoints the Prime Minister and other ministers, summons the Parliament, and gives assent to bills, among other functions. The Council of Ministers aids and advises the President. However, in specific circumstances, the President can exercise discretionary powers, particularly during political crisis like when no party holds a clear majority in a Lok Sabha election. Page 152. 2. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The Prime Minister is the de facto executive authority in India's parliamentary system. The President appoints the leader of the majority party or coalition in the Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister serves with the support of the majority of the MPs in the Lok Sabha. The Prime Minister's key functions include 1. Leading the Council of Ministers. 2. Advising the President. 3. Coordinating the work of different ministries. And 4. Shaping national policies. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers take decisions and run the government. They are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Most of the bills that come to the Parliament for discussion are initiated by the government. A permanent group of officials called civil servants help in implementing laws and policies. These officers, often called administrators or bureaucrats, work under the direction of ministers and ensure that government departments function smoothly. Let's explore. If the executive is part of the legislature, how do we say that there is separation of power? Hint: revisit the section on legislature above. Don't miss out. In 1956, Railway Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri resigned after a train accident. Although he was not blamed for the accident, he believed that a minister must take moral responsibility for anything that happens in their ministry. He offered his resignation to the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Nehru declined at first, but Shastri insisted. Finally, his resignation was accepted. At the bottom of the page, in the right-hand corner, a picture is given. This is figure 6.10 and it is labelled Lal Bahadur Shastri, Minister for Railways and later Prime Minister of India. Page 153. Differences between legislature and the executive. It is important to understand some key differences between the legislature and the executive. The following table briefly summarizes the distinctions. Under this, a table is given. This table has 3 columns. The first column is named Aspect, the second is named Legislature, and the third is named Executive. The first row is called Composition. So the composition of the legislature is: the Parliament of India is the supreme legislative body of the country, composed of the President, the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha. The executive is composed of the President, the Vice President, and the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. The second row is titled Main Role. So the main role of legislature is making laws and overseeing the work of the executive, and the main role of executive is enforcing the laws made by the legislature. The third row is titled Functions. The functions of the legislature are: it can introduce some bills in the Parliament, it keeps a check on the activities of the executive by asking questions and seeking explanations, it sanctions all government-related expenses, and it consults different parliamentary committees. The functions of the executive are that most of the bills are introduced by the executive in the Parliament. The executive provides information and explanations to the legislature on its decisions and actions. It aids and advises the President on important matters, including calling sessions of Parliament. It also prepares and implements the budget approved by the Parliament, and it can function independently in day-to-day matters and may consult committees when required. Page 154. The judiciary. Role of checks and balances. The judiciary is a branch of government that is responsible for interpreting and applying the laws of the land, including in specific cases of disputes. The judiciary functions through a system of courts and plays a pivotal role in maintaining the democratic nature of society and governance. The judiciary acts as a custodian of the Constitution, ensuring that all branches of the government operate within the principles and parameters enshrined in the Constitution. It keeps a check on the effective functioning of society and institutions of the government by interpreting laws, resolving disputes, and safeguarding fundamental rights. The Constitution not only describes how the legislature and executive are given power to govern the country, but it also lists the specific responsibilities of these organs. To ensure that the powers of the legislature are used properly and responsibilities are followed, the judiciary is given the unique and critical responsibility of checking that the laws passed by Parliament have not violated the constitutional framework. Similarly, if a violation of the Constitution occurs when the laws are implemented by the executive, the judiciary again has the power to step in. Just as the Parliament functions through its legislature and the executive arms, the judiciary functions through its courts. In this chapter, we have explored how the organs within the Parliament balance making of the law and executing it, and how the judiciary checks these actions. These are all examples of the separation of powers and the system of checks and balances among the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, ensuring that no one organ becomes too powerful. Let's explore. What might happen if one of the organs, legislature, executive, judiciary, had all the power? How could it affect the rights of the people? Discuss with your classmates how each organ checks for others. For example, how does the legislature question the actions of the executive? How does the judiciary make sure that laws and government actions respect the Constitution? Do you think there might be ways in which the actions of the judiciary itself are reviewed? Can you find examples where the judiciary has asked lawmakers to review a law? Can you find any instances when the implementation of a law has been questioned by the judiciary? Page 155. We will learn more about the judiciary in a later chapter. Legislative and executive functions at the state level. As discussed, the Union government has a parliament with legislative and executive functions. Similarly, each state has its own legislature and executive called its state assembly. Just as the parliament has members of parliament or MPs who make laws, there are members of legislative assembly, MLAs, who formulate laws on subjects that are on the state list and on the concurrent list. Union list, state list, and concurrent list. The Constitution has lists that help to clarify the areas on which the union and state governments can exclusively legislate, called the Union list and the state list, respectively. There is also a concurrent list that has subjects on which both the union and state governments can legislate. However, in the case that the union government legislates on a subject in the concurrent list, the state government is bound to follow it. In the case of RTE, for example, the Act is applicable all over India, even though education is in the concurrent list. At the bottom of the page, in the right-hand corner, a picture is given. This is figure 6.11 and it has a Venn diagram. It has two circles. One circle is called the Union list, the other is called the State list. The space where these two circles overlap each other is called the concurrent list. Specific matters like education and environmental policy require collaboration between union and states, exhibiting the interdependent nature of federalism. Page 156. Parallel structure of union and state governments in India. The structure at the state level imitates the one at the union level. You can see the structure across both levels in the table. Under this, a table is given. This table has 3 columns. The first column is called the feature, the second is called union government, and the third is called state government. This table compares union government and state government on different aspects featured under the column that is called feature. The first is constitutional head. So the constitutional head of the union government is the President of India elected by an electoral college, while the constitutional head of the state government is the governor of the state appointed by the President. The term of office or head is 5 years for union government and 5 years for state government. The executive head in the union government, the nominal head is the President, but the Prime Minister is the de facto executive authority at the center. In the state government, the nominal head is the governor, but the chief minister is the de facto executive authority of the state. Selection of executive. In the union government, the selection of the executive through becoming the leader of majority party or the coalition in Lok Sabha, while in the state government, one becomes the leader of the majority party or coalition in the Vidhan Sabha. The Council of Ministers is next. In the union government, the Council of Ministers is selected by the Prime Minister. In the state government, the Council of Ministers is selected by the Chief Minister. Responsibility of the union government is to collectively be responsible to Lok Sabha, while the responsibility of the state government is to collectively be responsible to Vidhan Sabha. Lower house. Lower house is the Lok Sabha or the House of the People in the union government, and in the state government it is Vidhan Sabha or the Legislative Assembly. Upper house, which is the Rajya Sabha in the union government, is also called the Council of States, and in the state government it is the Vidhan Parishad or the Legislative Council, which is in some states only. The term of the lower house is 5 years in the union government and 5 years in the state government. The presiding officer of the lower house is Speaker in the union government and Speaker in the state government. The legislative powers in the union government are that the union government makes laws on subjects in union list and concurrent lists, and the legislative powers of the state government are that they make laws on subjects in the state list and the concurrent list. Financial powers of the union government are that money bills originate only in Lok Sabha, and financial powers in the state government are that money bills originate only in the Vidhan Sabha. Page 157. Structure of state legislatures. Structure of state legislatures. Unlike the centre, the state legislatures can be unicameral, having only one house, or bicameral, having 2 houses. The Legislative Assembly is called the Vidhan Sabha, and the Legislative Council, the upper house, is called the Vidhan Parishad. The states having a bicameral system are Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Telangana, and Uttar Pradesh, while the remaining states have a unicameral system. In the middle of the page, a picture is given. This is figure 6.12. It is labelled as the Vidhan Saudha Houses, the Legislature in Karnataka. This building was envisioned by Kengal Hanumanthaya, who was a freedom fighter and a member of the Constituent Assembly, Chief Minister of Karnataka, and later a Member of Parliament. Let's explore. What type of legislature does your state have? Challenges to the effective functioning of the legislatures. As discussed, the Indian legislature, including the Parliament at the centre and the state assemblies, has the critical and vital role of enacting laws, overseeing administrative processes, and approving the budget. It also provides a platform for discussing national policies, development plans, international relations, and addressing public grievances. However, the legislature also faces several challenges in its effective functioning. Page 158. Some of these challenges can include regular absenteeism of members, non-cooperative conduct or communication of members, reduced quality of important debates, and disruptions of the question hour. The Parliament typically meets 3 times a year. These meetings are called sessions: budget sessions, monsoon sessions, and winter sessions. Each of these has sittings where the Parliament meets to deliberate upon proposed laws, discuss important matters of governance, and seek explanations from the executive on its decisions and actions. Usually, the Parliament sits for 6 hours a day during sessions. This can be extended on special occasions or when there is a need to complete urgent business. The state assemblies, too, have similar schedules. Let's explore. Study the data given in the following table. What conclusions can you draw about the functioning of Parliament over time? Compile data for more recent years. Under this, a table is given. This table has 3 columns. The first column is called Period of Lok Sabha. The second column is called Number of Sessions. And the third column is called Number of Sittings. The first Lok Sabha, which happened between 1952 and 1957, had 14 sessions and the number of sittings was 677. The second Lok Sabha between 1957 and 1962 witnessed 16 sessions and the number of sittings was 567. The 10th Lok Sabha between 1991 and 1996 witnessed 16 sessions and the number of sittings was 423. The 13th Lok Sabha between 1999 and 2004 witnessed 14 sessions and the number of sittings was 356. Read the following statement of the former chairman of the Rajya Sabha, M. Venkaiah Naidu, given in 2021. I quote, "The productivity of Rajya Sabha during 2004 to 2014 has been about 78% and it declined to about 65% since then. Of the 11 sessions that he presided over, 4 of them clocked low productivity of 6.80%, 27.30%, 28.90%, and 29.55%. During the year 2018, the Rajya Sabha recorded the lowest ever productivity of 35.75% under the impact of disruptions." Unquote. What conclusions can you draw from this statement? What implications does this have for the role that the Rajya Sabha is expected to play? The word productivity is highlighted here. In the parliamentary context, productivity is measured by the number of hours either the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha actually functioned against the time it was scheduled to function. Page 159. The Parliament and the state assemblies have been envisioned as spaces for thoughtful debates and discussions where laws are made in the interest of the people. However, when debates are disrupted, sessions are cut short, and some bills take years to be discussed and passed, it becomes a matter of concern. Let's explore. Take up a small group project. Compile data regarding the functioning of the legislature in your state or union territory. Seek an appointment with an MLA and gather information about challenges with respect to the state legislature. Concerns have been expressed by sections of society about the fact that a substantial proportion of their representatives in the Lok Sabha have criminal cases against them, and that many sessions are marked by angry or biased debates that do not seriously address issues affecting the people. The media also plays an important role in communicating the concerns of the electorate. These cartoons express them with humor, a practice common to all healthy democracies. At the bottom of the page, two pictures are given. The first picture is called Figure 6.13a. It is labeled Monsoon Session. Expect thunder, lightning, storms, breaches, etc. It's monsoon session. The second picture is Figure 6.13b, and it is labeled Scrutiny of Papers Filed by Candidates. Page 160. Yet, our democracy grows stronger when citizens stay informed and engaged. By asking questions, sharing their views, and participating in public discussions, people help shape better policies. Therefore, one of the best ways to overcome the challenges India faces regarding its legislature is to ensure that many more citizens stay informed on matters of importance to society, participate in discussions through public debate on digital spaces that various government departments offer during policy-making processes, and constructively engaging with political representatives on policies. Many more young leaders and diverse voices are entering public life, and technology is making it easier to stay connected and involved with governance. As future voters, your choices and participation will play a key role in strengthening our parliament and the assembly of the state you belong to, ensuring that they truly serve all people. Don't miss out. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, a former Prime Minister of India, said during a speech in the Lok Sabha, "सरकारें आएंगी जाएंगी, पार्टियां बनेंगी बिगड़ेंगी, लेकिन ये देश रहना चाहिए, इस देश का लोकतंत्र अमर रहना चाहिए," which translates to, governments will come and go, parties will rise and fall, but the nation must endure and its democracy must live on. Next to this text in the right-hand corner, a picture is given. This is Figure 6.14. It is a picture of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. What message do you think this gives about the role of Parliament and leaders in a democracy? Why is it important to protect democratic values even when political power changes? Page 161. Before we move on, 1. India's parliamentary system ensures that power is shared, decisions are debated, and leaders are held accountable. 2. The legislature makes laws, the executive implements them, and the judiciary ensures that they follow the constitution. 3. The parliament represents the voice of the people and reflects the federal spirit of our democracy. 4. Both at the centre and in the states, structures are designed to balance representation, responsibility, and unity. 5. Checks and balances between institutions help protect citizens' rights and uphold democratic values. And 7. The functioning of the Parliament needs to become more efficient and productive so that the country's progress is not thwarted. Questions and activities. Question 1. Find out how many representatives from your state are in each house of the Parliament. 2. What makes an Indian Parliament the voice of the people? How does it ensure that different opinions are heard? 3. Why do you think the Constitution made the executive responsible to the legislature? 4. Why do you think we have chosen the system of bicameral legislature at the union level? 5. Try to track the journey of a recent bill passed by the Parliament. Identify in which house it was introduced. Were there any major debates or disagreements? How long did it take for the bill to become a law? Use newspaper archives, government websites, and Lok Sabha debates or ask your teacher for help. Page 162, Question 6. Choose a recent law passed by the Parliament. Divide into teams to role-play different parts of the process. MPs debating in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, ministers answering questions, and the President giving assent. Present a short skit showing how a bill becomes a law. Enact a model parliament. Question 7. The Women's Reservation Bill 2023 was passed with wide support. Why might it have taken over 25 years for this bill to be passed, despite being discussed for so long? Question 8. Sometimes the Parliament is disrupted and does not function for the number of days it is supposed to. What impact do you think this has on the quality of laws and the trust people place in their representatives? Question 9. Can you create interest groups among students and list questions related to any policy that you may want to ask your MP and or your MLA? How would these questions be different if it is to the MP instead of the MLA and vice versa? Question 10. What is the role that the judiciary plays in Indian democracy? What could happen if we did not have an independent judiciary? This chapter ends here.
Exploring Society, India and Beyond. You were listening to this audiobook, Textbook of Social Science for Grade 8. Narration Divya Gupta. Sound Recordist Mohammad Faizan. Production Assistant Mohammad Shamim Khan. Directed and produced by Vimlesh Chaudhary. This audiobook is brought to you by CIET NCERT, New Delhi, India.